So obviously, Shaq's been talking to us a lot about more places to go. So that was an awesome training. I think, Ron, you're going to talk about referrals as well, right?
I'm doing more follow-up service.
Okay, cool. But I mean, moral of the story is we always have to have more places to go. And so that was great training. And I mean, getting referrals and getting the beneficiary referral is great. But what's the best way to get into the field? Through their warm market, right? So that's the easiest way to get into the field. And so you got to really learn how to do that and be successful at doing it too to build. So back in May, we actually had an incentive with Bruce at a winner's lunch at Santina's. And so Shaq and Samir always talk about work hard to win these incentives because you never really know what you're going to get out of that meeting. Right? You might hear things all the time. You might go to this incentive and hear the same thing, but it might hit you differently. And so we actually went to this lunch, and Bruce was talking about one thing that I've heard a lot, and it really helps out a lot when you're working with people. So I'll get into it. So one of the questions, go to the next page. One of the questions that he asked us was, what is the toughest part of this business? Right? So what are some things that people said? Changing habits, right? Some people say that that's one of the toughest parts. Some people say coachability, right? And some people say your new recruit following directions. And then sometimes they'll say, oh, it's making the calls, right? Because people get really nervous about making the calls. So we all think those things, but what did Bruce say? Bruce said the toughest part of this business is controlling the point of contact with your new person, right? So what does he mean by controlling the point of contact? So who wants to? Delonte, what do you think he means by that?
Well, for example, get a group and go to orientation and they're trying to set up appointments. Have them not say too much on the phone to the time. Like say life insurance or anything like that. Just kind of limiting what they're saying so you're not going to
Exactly, right? And that's the toughest point of the business. Why? Because right? The newest person, it's the toughest part is because with them, when they contact their warm market, that's where it's the difference between where they're going to quit or fail if they do well, right? So when a person, it's funny, we always get the call when we talk to a new person, they're super excited to go home, right? And then they call you back and they say, hey, I've been thinking. Right? We all get that same call,
Right.
But they haven't been doing any thinking whatsoever, really. All they've been doing is they reached out to somebody. Yeah. So they haven't been thinking. They literally just reached out to somebody, and someone asked them a question, and they tried to explain. And most of the time, does the new person know how to explain? No. So what happens is they fail, and when they fail, when people fail here, that's when they quit. So that's when they always give you that call. Hey, I've been thinking, but they haven't actually been thinking on anything. So what do? We want to make it easier for them, right? So one of the questions that we asked when we were talking to Bruce was, okay, is it going to be easier if we make the calls for the training? So what he said was, it doesn't really matter who makes the calls. It's really just controlling that point of contact. So it could be on the phone. It could be the second they leave, they text their mom, their friend. They let's say it's a younger person. Their parents are gonna be like, "Hey, how'd the interview go?" Right? Now that new person needs to know what to say to their parents because they're gonna ask them a lot of questions. So it could be anywhere as long as you're controlling that point of contact. You can help them be successful. So. Yeah. So why is it bad that new recruit is controlling the point of contact if you're not controlling it? It's because they don't really know what to say, what to do. Right? So they're the most ill-equipped at that point. So what's the scenario of disaster? Right? So they come in, the new recruit walks in, they come into the meeting or they come into the interview. They see a great orientation by Samir or Shaq on a Tuesday or a Saturday, or you do an amazing interview with them. So now they're super excited to jack them. So what's going to happen? They're going to go home, right? No matter what you tell them in the meeting, how excited they are, they're going to go home and they're going to want to talk to someone. Somebody's going to ask them something, right? So you always want to do that. And that person is always going to have more influence over them than you did. You only met them for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe in the orientation 2 hours at most. But who are they going to listen to, me or their parents?
Yeah.
Their parents, right? Or their best friends. So you want to make sure that you're controlling that point of contact. So you're going to ask them questions, right? And so how they start asking questions, it's going to get worse in that situation, right? So now they're going to try to answer the questions. And when they answer the questions, are they going to have the right answers? No, it's going to be really bad. It's going to be completely wrong answers. And now, when they get that, they're going to be depressed. And the people that they're talking to is going to jump to conclusions. And hey, you've never been in financial services before. Why are you doing this? Do they know how to answer that? No, right? So all of these things come into play. And now, that's why someone is super excited. They come, you don't hear from them the next 2-3 days. They go MIA, right? So you want to control that. So one example that Bruce was talking about is that this is something that a lot of times people will think, hey, why isn't my recruit responding to me? What am I doing wrong? It's not just you. This happens everywhere. Every Primerica office, every person, every Primerica representative, this happens to them. Right? So if you don't control it, he said, you'll be a casualty in this business if you don't learn how to control it. So this also plays a huge role in double-digit recruiting. So if you can learn how to control this point of contact, now you can get through their market, right? So what typically happens? People will recruit somebody, and then they'll recruit 2 or 3 people. But if you can learn how to control this point of contact, now you can recruit that one person, get to their market, talk to their friends, to their family, and now that can lead to the double-digit recruiting and the explosion that you can have, right? So, pretty cool example that kind of sets the tone. It was a story that Bruce was saying about an example being in the military, right? So, one of the toughest positions to be in when you're in the military is called the point, right? So, the point is really the first person that kind of scouts the situation. Like if someone was, I don't know, in a battle or in a war or something, right? They like go out and they scout the situation. So they go out and they're the first guy that, let's say, they walk through the jungle, right? What usually happens to the first guy that comes out? So it's blown up, right? Fall into a trap, whatever the case may be. So it's the same thing here. That first point of contact can kill you in this business. So what does he say, right? When you get off the boat, you don't want the brand new person, Billy Johnson, leading you out into a trap or whatever the case may be, right? Who do you want? Who do you want doing that? You want the staff sergeant. You want the person that's been there for 5 years, the person that's seen these things before, the person that's going to be able to catch the traps and whatever else is going on. Because they've experienced it. And so it's exactly the same thing. So with that, I mean, you just want to make sure that you're the one that's reaching out and getting in touch with them. Because if you don't, get shot. You do recruit. What does Shaq say all the time? He says, people are so jacked up here, they walk out there and shots are fired. It's the exact same thing. So that's there. So, of course, now how do we control that point of contact? The biggest part is, obviously, we help our trainees with feedback. It's one of the easiest ways to set appointments. So a lot of times we'll sit with them and we'll watch them, but sometimes we'll say, hey, this is the script, go home, you can call your mom, you can call your dad, it's pretty simple, right? But that's not really the most efficient way to do it. You actually want to do it with them. When you do your orientation, sit with them. Even if it's in the interview and you're trying to just set up that appointment to meet with their parents, sit with them and watch them make the call. Because now they're making the call with you. If they do it by themselves, it's disaster, right? They may call the person, they don't know how to answer their questions, now they're not getting any coaching, and the person on the phone, whoever they're talking to, will ask them a question, they don't know how to answer it, right? So we just want to make sure that were there, and get through that. So, a lot of places too that you can help is just coaching. Like when you're actually watching the recruits set the appointments. Now between every single call that they make, now you can coach them. So, for example, they make the first call. Let's say they don't set the appointment, but now what you can do is say, okay, great, that was awesome. We got everything down, but next time, don't say too much. Or next time, hey, try saying this instead. But now they're coaching instead of the new recruit saying, oh my God, I did awful, that wasn't good. Now they just know that, hey, it's not good. I just got to get better the next time I say it. So if we can do that, we can help them along the way. Because one of the things that Bruce says was, no one quits our business when they have success. Right? No one says, hey, I'm super successful here, I quit. Right? People quit when they fail. So if we can be there, help them, coach them along the way, then they'll stick around. Right? So really, for me, some of the things that I just do, I implement when I'm talking to my people, is you go through. Yeah. Right. Go back to people, right? So with that, just like what you were saying right at the beginning, right? You want to coach them on some of the things not to say, right? When we say feed the word, obviously, it's Taiwan. Taiwan, sorry. What's feed the word? What's this? You know? Okay. Go ahead. What's feed?
Yeah, and for like the service and for I'm here to ask you what you need to really say about the atmosphere you stated. He is shoot, I forget the rest of it.
Right? So that's important, right? We want to make sure that we know this, especially if we have new people here setting appointments. So F is for favor, and I'll just give you a call because I have a favor house, right? E is excited. I'm really excited. I just started working with this new company. T is training, right? I'm going through some training right now. And H is help. I just wanted to ask you for some help. O, we don't really use. I think it was for opinion. I just want to ask your opinion. But then R is maybe after what you see, maybe you can introduce me to something, right? So that's what a new person will typically say. But what do most new people want to say? Hey, I'm working with an insurance company. Hey, I can help people with retirement. Hey, I can get you out of debt, right? Or, hey, I'm selling insurance right now. Or, hey, you can sit down with me, and if you're interested, then you want to get something, right? You don't want your new recruit saying that because what is the person on the phone going to think? Hey, you're coming over to sell me something. Hey, you're not in finance. Why are you coming to me to talk about this stuff, right? You want to stick to the script. Then now when we're inviting guests, right, it's the same thing. So you want to teach them how to do that because when people are coming back to their first meeting back after doing orientation or when they come to an interview, you want to bring in a lot of people with them, right? So you want to teach them what to say and what not to say, right? So what I like to do when I'm talking to my new people is tell them to defer as many questions as possible. The way that I do that is just say, hey, tell your friend, tell your family, whoever it is that you're trying to invite out, hey, I just started working with the company. I'm not really licensed to say much right now. So that's why my trainer is going to give you a call. Or that's why I want you to come out to the meeting here from my trainer. Right? So now they're deferring the questions. And now the questions will come to you. Does that make sense? Okay. So, I mean, the end goal is to obviously improve this because this will help. It's a big part. And for me personally, I've heard it before, but when he said it, I was like, wow, I've been doing this business now for 3 years. And this was something that didn't really stick out to me before. But go back and think about it. You've talked to a person, and they don't show up. And then you're like, what happened? Now this makes a ton of sense. And so, obviously, you want to do that immediately. You want to try to set up a time to meet with everybody in their circle. Anybody that has influence on them, parents, friends, best friends, as soon as possible, because those are going to be the people that they're going to go talk to. And then, obviously, we want to get them to their sprint district and off to a fast start. And this was huge. So Bruce said that if you can improve this one aspect of your business just by 25%, your entire business will go up 50 to 75%. But if you can get great at doing this one thing, you can change your entire career. So, I mean, if we can do this, it'll be awesome. And I think, like I said, one of the most important parts of training today is setting appointments. So just keep all of this in mind when we're going out and talking to people. Other than that, does anybody have questions?
So let's say, you're pulling out the person's IDA and you're sending out the orientation within the next 48 hours. What if instead of you waiting for the orientation, you start right then and there, trying to contact their parents, their best friend, because they may not show up for the orientation? What if you start that process before you start the orientation? That'd be a good idea.
Yes, and I actually do that. I learned this from Matt. But at the end of an interview, when you sit down with somebody, if it's a younger person, married, whatever the case may be, one of the questions that he asks is, hey, when you're making a decision about a new career, who's an important person that you want to talk to? Who has influence on you? Usually they'll say, my friends, or not my friends, my parents, or my spouse. And so with that, I'll say, okay, well, at this point in time, who do you think can explain that better, you or me? Obviously, they say me, right? So I say, okay, great. Well, why don't we just go ahead and call your mom or call your spouse real quick, and I'll just maybe set up a time just to meet and greet to kind of explain a little bit more. How's that sound? And usually they'll be like, okay, cool. You can try to say. Any other questions?
Do you put armor on your new recruits? Like, do you give them any sort of materials or tell them anything or show them anything before they leave the interview?
Kind of. I mean, I will do my best to answer any questions that they have there. But then I always send them an email, the credibility email. After every interview, any person that I meet, if they come out to a meeting, I do an interview, even on an appointment when I do a KT, I'll always send them an email with credibility links. Hey, I know you're going to go back. Your parents might want to see something. You can show them this email. It has more links. I attach the American Credibility brochure. So that's pretty much. Anything else? All right. Thank you guys. So Rhonda's going to be coming up. Obviously, she's going to talk about following up with the client. She'll probably hit on some things about referrals as well. But Rhonda's like one of the best people in our office, probably in the business, on customer service, following up with your clients, getting referrals. So she teaches a lot.